You wish they just stopped making these things. Yes, we are going to talk about the first episode of Alien Earth, another entry in this long, exhausted franchise, and ooh boy, what a mess we have to unpack. There's three plot lines to this episode, and none of them are really that good. In fact, we'll break them down one by one. And the first one we'll talk about is the actual xenomorph plot, because ironically, it's only a few scenes in the full hour plus runtime. It starts up, we kick off the whole episode with a direct recreation of the intro to the very first Alien movie, down to the camera angles, lingering on the space on the sleeping pods, opening up to an entire crew. And the crew gets out, and by God, the dialogue is so clunky and exposition heavy. It is unnatural. And yet, you don't care a single thing about who these people are, what they're saying. The only thing of note is that this crew is very unprofessional, and they have a member who's for some reason singled out as being weird because he stares at them as they sleep, which I guess was some kind of red herring, but it doesn't work because the twist is revealed immediately in the next time we revisit these people, if it isn't already revealed to you. In fact, in this very scene, as they're talking around the table. But as the crew has gotten up, they're sitting down to eat, and one of the members is going over history, local government, with one of the newer members who apparently doesn't know his social studies. And again, it's a very clunky means of expositing to us how there on Earth there are four major corporations, but the only two you need to know are Weyland-Yutani, which if you're not familiar with them, you must be new to the franchise, or the new one introduced in this series called Prodigy. And taking note that this is supposed to be a prequel to the original Alien, and Prodigy has never come up, this company is gonna go under by the end of the series. So the only other character of note is this guy who I swear looks like a crazy prospector who walked off of the set of Covenant. He's wearing like the wool mitt and everything too. And he's all dirty. And according to his dialogue, they have already encountered aliens, the xenomorphs, that have already killed members of the crew. And they're transporting them on this ship to Earth. And he's suggesting we should space them all. We should get rid of them all. But one member of the crew who is the android, again, you'll either immediately pick it up on it, or it's revealed to you in the very next time we revisit these guys. It says no, their job is to take them to Earth, and then we cut away to them all getting ready to go back into cryosleep. So I don't know what the purpose of this wake up scene in functionally in universe. They just woke up, ate, slung some dialogue, and then went right back to sleep. It is so inconsequential. But one of the members is in a science lab, and she's feeding some aliens that are in the tubes. And this is where the editing gets really, really weird, because it looks like she starts falling asleep at her station. And then we get this annoying strobe effect where the camera is briefly flashing moments of carnage, but it's so fast you have no idea what you just saw. All you know is there was blood on the screen and some people are dead. And yeah, that's the only time we'll see any real rampage, except for the very next scene of the xenomorph. We don't see the xenomorph rampaging across this. We don't see how it got out. We don't know where these samples came from the facehuggers. It's not explored at all, which is very strange because in the Alien universe, where xenomorphs come from is very specific. They don't just show up anywhere unless, again, it's established somewhere later on in the series. But I don't care to watch it because I don't care about anyone in this series. I mean, this is the first group you meet, and they're all dead because by the very next scene, we cut back to There's only 2 members left. The android who is sitting in a chamber talking to the mother program on the computer, and another survivor who only arrives to bang on the door, ask him to let her in, and I don't know what it was about her delivery. Something just felt off with her. She didn't feel like she was actually panicking. She felt more mildly annoyed, like, "Hey, stop trying to, this prank has gone on long enough. This is enough." Not, "Oh my god, let me in. What is wrong with you? Why are you doing this?" And again, how the xenomorph got out, how there's a xenomorph running around, don't know. It's not explained at all. And again, this is a crew that's apparently already dealt with these things, that's already lost people to them. And yet, the xenomorphs are broken out. And just so you know, no, by the episode's logic, this was not planned. There was no planning from Weyland Yutani that they wanted the xenomorph to get out before the ship arrived to Earth. Because as the android is talking to Mother, the way he's talking and what he's saying, it's very clear they wanted these samples to get to Earth, and the xenomorph breaking out en route completely derails all of that progress. But so the android gets up because the lady's just being annoying, and he seals it. His hand morphs into a single blowtorch, which was interesting because we've never seen that before. And it's entirely done inside his skin too, which again, that's really interesting because we never saw that with the later android models in the original movies, which chronologically take place after this movie. So again, where was this ability? These is really advanced despite never showing up chronologically later on. But he seals the door and he goes back to typing on the mother computer when the xenomorph shows up. And the xenomorph is on screen for less than a minute. It flashes by the screen, it spears the woman from behind, and then it kills her, which, does the xenomorph want people alive or not? Because usually these things always want to make more face huggers. It's how they reproduce if they don't have a queen on hand, obviously. But again, it's just killing people. So, does it want people alive? Does it not? Why does it feel like the xenomorph has been reduced to a generic slasher villain? I don't know. Call it the degradation of bad writing. But then this actually kind of made me laugh because the xenomorph sees the android typing on the computer and it starts smashing its face into the door frame of all things. The hyper-intelligent killers just start smacking its face into the door. It made me laugh that the xenomorph apparently would resort to this instead of trying to sneak away, or why it's even aggressive to an android when the android isn't alive. But whatever. So it smashes his face, breaks through the glass, and the android decides it's gonna jump into a crash vault right below Mother, which is a strange place. It feels like, okay, we're just giving him a convenient way of escape so he doesn't die or get destroyed in this scene. And that's pretty much where that storyline ends because it'll then overlap with a third plot line of this series, of this episode. But again, that's it. That's all you get for the actual Alien storyline in this episode until you get to the very end, when I'll get to that. But yeah, and that was the only time you see a xenomorph in this entire episode, which was so disappointing because we basically just had an entire off-screen storyline that happened for no reason, seemingly. But at least we could have seen some xenomorph carnage. But again, the only thing you got to see was this disorienting strobe flash effect of xenomorph carnage. The second plotline of this story involves the new company that introduced Prodigy, which is involved on an island called Neverland. And in case you can't get it, yes, Neverland from Harry Potter. And not Harry Potter, sorry. I mean Peter Pan. God, I'm feeling off today. But it's Peter Pan. And don't worry, in case the reference threw over your head, they're going to make sure you get it. because we open up on a terminally ill child who I presume is dying of cancer or some other treatment because she looks like a cancer patient. And she's in a room with a scorpion in a glass bowl. And she's focused on the scorpion, and she has another character with her, an adult, who I swear looks like Roy Batty from Blade Runner. I don't know if that's an intentional reference or if they just chose the actor. Again, it just looks like Roy Batty, which is a very strange. But this whole plotline felt very Prometheus-y, only done much worse. Because turns out this terminally ill child is here because she's going to be part of a new radical treatment where they are going to transfer her brain into a completely artificial body. And the specifics of this body aren't really explained very well. Is it fully organic, but it must not be because of what you see the body do later on. And she's taken away to meet the head of Prodigy, who is another billionaire tech bro. He's the youngest trillionaire ever. I don't know his name. I don't care because there's nothing to him. He's not memorable. He doesn't have any presence. And there's nothing interesting about him. Besides, he likes to wear guru garbs. And he has a stress ball. He's just your average new wave tech billionaire, which I'm starting to miss the old class of, oh yes, I'm an evil businessman. I miss those characters now, with how annoying and generic the new age tech bro has become on screen. But they're gonna have her sit down for this transference protocol, and he tells her, "You want to see a magic trick?" And this just broke my immersion completely in the episode because he snaps his fingers and the ceiling of the room that they're conducting the procedure rolls back and they start playing footage from the animated Peter Pan movie, which, okay, congrats. Thank you, Disney. I know, Disney owns Alien. Okay, you didn't have to remind me of that. But this Peter Pan metaphor, way to beat it over the head. There's subtlety and then there's just brick to the face, and that was a brick to the face. But they sit down for this transference protocol, and the transference is so quick and nonchalant that I almost was thinking, surely there's more to it, right? There has to be more to this. Because all it is the child laying on a bed, some wavy, glowing lines phasing along the table she's on, and the glowing lines appearing on the other body beneath it. And that's it. Her mind is transferred. There's no surgical process, no advanced medical procedure. It's just that. It's straight up magic, basically. And that was so disappointing in a series that's very rooted in the science horror. But so she wakes up, and her last request was that she wanted to be called Wendy. She doesn't want to be dead named, okay? She's Wendy now. And she's the only character's name I remember from the whole episode. I don't remember any of the crew. I don't remember new other characters we haven't touched on. I don't know any of these people. The only one whose name I remember is Wendy, and it's because they made a whole scene out of it. But the next time we see her, she's standing in her new body on a cliff. On top of a massive cliff, by the way. She sees the matron scientist caretaker call for her. She jumps off the cliff and she slams full force into the sand. And I was just, what the heck kind of body did you make her? I thought this was a simple human transference body. You gave her superhuman abilities? And it's even further heightened because she then takes off sprinting faster than an Olympic athlete. And again, it's like, what was the purpose exactly of this experiment? Is it to make immortals? Is it to make superhumans? And where is this tech supposed to go? Because again, this never comes up in the future installations, so this can't go anywhere. But they have a session of her sitting down in a therapy style room with Roy Batty character and the matron. And again, I don't know their names. That's just what I call them for convenience. And this is where the episode started to get weird, where this was very much framed as supposed to be humor, but it's really kind of gross when you think about it, because the child Wendy makes a comment talking about how these feel were weird, and she's holding her breasts. And again, this is a 12-year-old's mind in an adult body, and this is the first thing you have her comment on about the feeling of being in a new body, which again, that felt very uncomfortable. And unfortunately, that's all we're really going to get when they talk about the strangeness of being in a new body. They don't talk about something as basic as, wow, my depth feels off because I'm so much taller now than I normally was, and my arms and limbs are bigger. Nothing simple or mundane that would make you rooted. It's, man, my breasts feel weird on my chest now. Which, again, 12-year-old in an adult body, really getting some weird territory there for Hollywood. But then again, it's Hollywood. And this is where the problems really started going with this plotline, because the matron and Roy Batty start arguing about Wendy right in front of her, about whether or not is she still human or not, which you'd think, do not say this in front of the subject because she's young and therefore unstable. We've only just done this. This is something you should be doing behind closed doors, and yet they're having this argument right in front of her, which, again, you think for a professional operation they'd be taking the greatest care not to mentally upset her, and yet they are doing so. But then the matron tells her that, hey, we've got more kids who are going to be subject to this procedure. You're going to be the mother figure to them to help them ease into it. Do you think you're up to that? And Wendy's like, yes, I can do that, totally. We then cut to another scene of Wendy in what looks like a little private garden with more terminally ill children. And there's one in a wheelchair, there's one with an IV bag. They're all clearly, again, terminally ill children. From what disease, I don't know. It's not really elaborated on. Which I also just want to sidebar a bit and note that it feels a little weird because I know in Prometheus there's a deleted scene from the prologue where you had Guy Pearce talking about how by this point in time they had eradicated things like cancer. So how their medical technology has advanced so rapidly, especially if they're here on Earth. So how they're still terminally ill children of this kind of caliber, I don't know. Again, that's only if you think that the Prometheus technology has advanced that far. But it is a little strange to me. But again, this is just a little sidebar piece. It's not relevant to the critique of the episode, so it doesn't have any bearing. But back to the plot. You have Wendy sitting here talking with these kids, and she tells them that yes, you'll be able to walk, you'll be able to dance, you'll be able to have all sorts of fun once you're in a brand new body, because it works for me. And then we get a very rapid montage of these kids going through the process. And again, here there's a little warning sign, which I feel like nobody in the scientist group is taking seriously, which is that Wendy starts to take a very proactive role in ordering the scientists about how to address the kids. And she even repeats do you want to see a magic trick? Peter Pan movie effect that the CEO did earlier, which again, I feel like if I was a scientist in this place and my job is to monitor these kids, I'd be saying, Wendy's displaying some very independent behaviors that might influence the other children into being more rebellious, or that we might not be able to control her as well. So they go through this process, and the montage is, of course, cut in and out with footage from the animated Peter Pan movie, which, okay, so these are her lost boys, and she's Wendy or she's Peter Pan, depending on your choice. She's kind of a blend of the two of them, but I don't think the metaphor works nearly as well as they thought it would. Because the whole point of Peter Pan was that these are kids who come to this island and they don't grow up as long as they're here. And again, this is strictly applying to the animated movie, not the original book, which is a whole nother beast entirely. But here the kids are actually growing up. They're being put into artificial bodies. That's throwing them completely out of whack. But so they have the bodies and the transferences are done. Meanwhile, at the same time, Wendy has displayed another incredible ability where she can remotely hack and swipe along any monitoring systems of prodigies. She can access any of their tech anywhere, which I was just, again, what is the purpose of Wendy's experiment exactly? Because that's an incredible ability to give her, and one that you'd think they'd be monitoring more closely, especially because what she's doing with it, which is that she's using the cameras and features inside this Neverland Island to remotely monitor her brother in Prodigy City. And earlier they had mentioned the brother, and she had said, "I would like to see him after the procedure is done." And she was told, "Sure." Well, then Wendy just casually mentions here in narration that Prodigy told her brother that she was dead. And Wendy's not attempting to escape. She's not attempting to contact him, even though she clearly can. So this character's motive is strange. You'd think this would be the great foundation for, okay, she's on the island, she's a child, to go along with the Peter Pan metaphor. She's on the island, she's a child, she's being given a new lease on eternal life, and it's everything she could dream of. On this island, she never has to grow up, she never gets old. It's her dreamland. But then slowly she starts to peel back how terrible this place is, and you have a classic escape from the island, where she wants to contact her brother and see him again. But no, she doesn't want to do that. She's content staying on the island. Until later on, when she isn't content with staying on the island, because this character just seems to care, and then she doesn't care. Does she care? Doesn't she care? Who knows? Because she's entirely inconsistent. And this is where we then cut away to the third plot line, which follows the brother. So it turns out he's a medical officer working in Prodigy Security, who lives in Prodigy City. And as he's going about his day, he meets up with his new squad. He's walking through the buildings, and this was another hilarious moment where they're just playing footage from another movie. Because he comes across some kids in an apartment who are watching Ice Age, and it turns out he and Wendy liked to watch that when they were little kids, and Wendy's even mouthing along to a scene of it from the Ice Age movie, which was just so very immersion breaking and very on the nose, trying a way of saying this she still remembers, so she does care, but again, she does not seem to care enough to want to contact her, despite being the only thing we understood she cared about previously. But so the brother goes around these buildings, he meets up with this squad, and this is where the Xenomorph plotline finally intersects, because the big science vessel that they were on is on a collision course with Earth, and there's a brief shot of it in orbit, crashing and sliding along an orbital ring station, which by the moon, which I don't even know why that was there, because it didn't contribute anything. I don't know what the station was. It didn't even look like there were any people on it. So what that was, I don't know. In fact, I don't know why it was in the scene. But apparently the ship is able to crash into Prodigy City with no early warnings. There's no advanced system, no attempts to shoot it down, nothing. It just crashes into Earth immediately, into one of the 4 major corporate territories of the entire planet. And this would be one thing if this crashed in Weyland-Yutani territory, because then, okay, they can suppress that information. They can scramble their own systems. You can't do that if it's a rival corporation, though. And again, here's the other thing, too. Where's the Earth government? You're telling me there were no satellites, no warning systems in place to tell them, hey, a big ship in this spacefaring civilization that we have now is coming on a collision course with the planet. But we have to let the plot happen. Even though I'm pretty sure this wouldn't add anything other than maybe some extra scenes of panic as people try to stop the ship. Which, cool, could maybe give us some time for tension. Get to know the people of Prodigy as they respond to this crisis and the inevitability of this collision coming in. Maybe we can even see a little bit of Weyland-Yutani politicking with Prodigy as this ship is crashing in. But no, we get the crash, and this is the one time in the whole series where the aesthetics really did not fit, because the city that it crashes in feels like a J.J. Abrams Star Trek city on Earth, where it's not really a science fiction city, it's just a modern city you and I have today, only some of the buildings are more rounded than squared. It really reminded me of the Star Wars Andor series, with especially the sets on Coruscant, where they didn't feel very much like Coruscant. They felt more like contemporary cities, as opposed to something in a completely new science fiction world. But the ship crashes, and it's your average 9/11 setting. There's buildings all over. The brother is going with his squad. They're part of emergency response. They start going through the building, tracking along, following them as they respond to different people, and then they arrive at the ship crash that's inside this major building. And they decide to go inside it. They have no backup. They don't know what's inside. They could be leaking radiation or gas for all you know. But you're going to go inside it anyway when there are still people outside who need help. And as they climb in, one of the female, or at least the female, I don't know if there were another female because we didn't get much time with the squad, makes a very off-color joke that would be very inappropriate to the situation, because she says, hey, do we get salvaging rights? Eh? And I was just, not the time or place for humor. Like, come on, have a little tact for the situation. But they go in, and of course they split up, which I don't know why you're splitting up. You have one medic in your squad, and you're looking for survivors who could be suffering catastrophic injuries. Why are you leaving the medic? You only have one medic. And again, they don't radio in for backup. They don't wait for other hazard responses to check it out, make sure the ship is even safe to go inside. They're just going in because we got to feed people to the meat grinder. And they go in, they split up. The first team finds the sleeping bay from the first. They find remnants of the carnage, and they're still looking. Meanwhile, you got these 2 other dumbasses walking through into the laboratories, where they find the smashed up remains of the various alien species that were being transported on this ship. They then decide, okay, we're gonna split. After they find a body that's been clearly executed. And they even note that it was killed with 2 bullets to the skull. So this person was not killed in the crash. And we also know, therefore, not by the xenomorph. or any other aliens that were released. But they come across the android, who is just holding a pistol to the back of them and says, "Drop your guns and slowly turn around and face me." And they make no attempts to disarm him. They don't really try to talk him down. They almost immediately cave because he fires a single shot by them, and that's enough to completely cow these supposedly trained soldiers. And they drop their weapons, even though they're also wearing helmets and body armor, so you'd think they should be able to take whoever this is on, especially when they see it's just a scientist guy in a lab coats with a single pistol. Again, they don't know he's an android. For all they know, he's just a regular human being. And he then makes them zip tie themselves to a pole in the laboratory, takes away their knives, and he just tosses them aside. Within easy reach, too, presumably pretty easy reach. And he then decides he's going to leave them there and walks away. He doesn't just terminate them, which, if you were willing to kill the other members of the crew, why are you leaving these two alive? And why are you leaving them alone in case somebody comes across and finds them? But this is done, again, for the plot, because two centipede creatures drop down on top of them and start crawling along their skin, on their backs. And neither of them feel this. Neither of them react appropriately to feeling, "Oh, dude, something just something just dripped onto me. What the hell? I feel something crawling around me." No reaction at all. Until one of them realizes, "Hey, something's on me. Something's on my face." It's literally crawling along his face, and this centipede creature then jabs itself into the neck of the first soldier, and it balloons up like it's draining in a cocoon, like it's draining his blood in a balloon. And then the second one arrives and kills the second guy, and that's it. That's all we leave off on. So apparently there's more aliens, which, cool, but why are we introducing them now in a prequel series that's supposed to be, Alien Earth, the xenomorphs getting on Earth, one of the biggest nightmare scenarios ever. But, okay, I guess we're going to throw in brand new aliens all of a sudden. And that's pretty much where that storyline leaves off. The last piece of this story that we go to is back on Neverland with Wendy, who is in the middle of a sounding test, where they put on like headphones and they ask you, "Okay, do you hear this noise in your right ear? Do you hear the noise in your left ear?" She's in a room with a bunch of scientists getting ready to do this test, and again with a very inappropriate humor, because she asks the guy who's running the test, "Why don't you have any kids?" And his response is, "I have a low sperm count," which was so vulgar and gross. Which, again, this is supposed to be a 12-year-old in an adult body. This is not something you would say to a 12-year-old. Especially because she is acting like a child. She is not acting like an adult. She is very much still a child. And again, it's so off humor, where you're just like, was that supposed to be funny or gross? I don't know what to think about this. But again, it's not funny. And again, why would you say this to a child when there are so many other ways you could have phrased it? But conveniently, of course, while they're doing this test inside a laboratory room where they're supposed to be running some tests on an island that's supposed to be isolated so they don't get influenced to go outside, there's a news broadcast in the same room showing the crashed ship. And she, again, remotely hacks the system with a wave of her finger, and it displays on all the terminals. And she sees her brother is in the crash, is there at ground zero. And she immediately decides, "I need to go help him. I need to go save him." Which, okay, that came out of nowhere, because again, you've been able to observe him, and yet you've never expressed a desire to go see him, but now you care enough that you want to go save him in a situation that he's already trained for. And this is what he does. But she then goes to see the CEO, and the way she convinces him is so poor that she's like, we're stronger, we're tougher, send us in, we don't break. And this is any competent person will say, no, you're too valuable. We just sank God knows how much money into bringing proof to your concept that this process can be done. And now you just want to send him into a hazardous, horrific 9/11 scenario where anything could happen. And as much as I appreciate the sentiment, sweetheart, you can still be blown up. I don't think your body can survive a building falling on top of you or an explosion going off if a gas leak happened. Who knows? There are a million different scenarios where this could end so badly. And it's all for the wrong reasons because she has a personal stake in this. So you could not trust her judgment to be clear in the situation. And they even say, because he asks, hey, Roy, Batty, is there some reason for this? And he tells her, well, she has a brother working there, and he's responding to the situation, which, again, I don't know why the CEO needs to ask about this. If his pet multi-trillion-dollar project, he should probably know the background, basic family, at least the basics, that, oh yeah, these people have family, if she does. But he asks, and then he's like, oh, are you tough enough for this? And he throws one of those like stress balls at her, and she catches it. And he's like, okay, yeah, okay, you're strong enough, you're good. Send them all in. He's not just sending one, he's sending all the children in. So congrats. If something goes wrong, you've just lost your entire investment, and you got to start from scratch. But idiots got to idiots, and we got to get these people to the next place, presumably so they can be more fodder for more aliens in the future. So Wendy goes to her room, and in another unintentionally hilarious scene that I'm pretty sure was supposed to be serious, there's a paper cutter in her room. She grabs the blade, takes it off, and samurai sword style sticks it to her back. And she takes it with her. I'm like, you're going to search and rescue. Why are you taking that? Why do you even have that in your bedroom? What on earth am I looking at? What is going on? Is this supposed to be badass? Because it's not. It's unintentionally hilarious. But she goes over to the other Lost Boys, who are all discussing, hey, what's the worst way to die? Yet that's, again, is no one monitoring these kids' mental well-being? Making sure they're stable? And if this is what I think it is, then this is supposed to be foreshadowing for how some of them are going to die. Wonderful. And no, that's all we get with them. You don't know anything about these kids. You don't care about them as they're going into. I barely know Wendy at all, and I don't even know if I'm supposed to care about her. I don't care about her brother. I didn't care about the crew. So who am I supposed to be rooting for? Hell, there isn't even a xenomorph on screen for more than a minute to get invested in. Because at least with the bad alien movies, when the xenomorphs show up, you'd be like, oh, okay, good, we're about to get some carnage. But you don't even get that. Again, maybe they'll fix this in the future episodes, but I don't care because I'm not going to watch any more of this series. And by this point, the episode felt like it was dragging on too long. It really should have just ended with the crash and then cut away there and then start the next episode with the first responders. But this is going on. This is dragging on. So Wendy and the Lost Boys get on a shuttle, and they got Roy Batty with them, and she's got her stupid paper cutter sword on her back, and they're being flown to the crash site. And out of nowhere, Roy Batty starts giving a whole monologue about how vicious humans are at our core, how we eat each other up in the wild, and society just masks these impulses. And you're just, where did this come from? Aren't we almost at the end of the episode? This is a weird place in time to start trying to make a moral critique of mankind, which, I don't know, where's this supposed to go? And why are you giving it to Wendy, of all people? She's a child. And at this point, I think it's implying that Roy Batty himself is another android, which, cool. So the guy who looks like the villain from Blade Runner, who was an android, is an android. Cool. And this is where the scene closes, and I haven't talked about the score at all, but up to this point, it's been your fairly standard Alien soundtrack. It's reminiscent of Jerry Goldsmith and James Horner. It's the same kind of music you hear from any of these projects. Which, okay, cool. If you can't do something new, at least do this old thing well, which up to this point was pretty good. Until we got to the credits, because out of nowhere, a rock song starts playing over the closing scenes and then over the credits, and it was just such a tonal whiplash. I have not experienced since I saw Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 6, where they played that stupid metal song at the end of the Siege of Eregion. It was just such a tonal whiplash, and it came out of nowhere. And either way, it was the perfect cherry on top to how terrible this episode was. The dialogue was clunky and exposition-y. You don't care about the characters at all. I don't really know where this story is supposed to go for the world, because there's so many new factors going on now that we know can't and also cannot go anywhere because of continuity, unless we're going to completely disregard continuity, which wouldn't be the first time, but whatever. And yeah, overall, this was just not a good episode. You're supposed to put your best foot forward with your first episode, and this was not a good foot forward. So don't watch this show. If you need, there's 3 entries in the Alien franchise: the first 2 movies and Alien Isolation, and that's it. You don't need any more. Anyway, take care and have a good evening, everyone. Bye bye.